See, join channel here over at Subscribe Star. So Hollywood has a anti-Christian bias. Really? You don't say. This is my shock face. So Leishman is my favorite at the Mary Sue. She's just so silly and just so over the top ridiculous that I'm actually starting to look forward to her stuff. She says there's the actor is ranting about an anti-Christian bias in Hollywood that doesn't exist. She's literally giving examples of anti-Christian bias in Hollywood that very much does exist. So it's a little bit of a weird, I guess that's called gaslighting. You can see it for yourself. If you've been paying attention to Hollywood over the past, since, I don't know, about 1960, yeah. Let's dial it down there, Rachel Leishman. So there's a couple of articles out about this Rainn Wilson guy, and don't get me wrong, in his own way he's ridiculous. He wanted to change his name to something to do with global warming or something. These are the same people who are, in limousines, taking limousines to their private jets, their Lear jets, where they put a couple people on a Lear jet and they fly it to a climate conference in Paris or something. So you burned 100,000 liters of fuel. Yeah, that's right. To go to a climate conference. Yeah, you got it. That's weird. So some would say that was weird. Don't focus on that. Just focus on you guys. First they said you need to drive Priuses, and then they said you need to drive electric cars, and now they're going, oh well, the power grid can't support the charging of electric cars, so you need to take the bus. And now they go, oh no, you need to be in 15-minute cities, or that's what the left wing calls them. The right wing calls them. Trump calls them freedom cities. So you're talking about prison camps essentially, where you're taking away the freedom of the automobile, but it also apparently is taking away the freedom of even public transportation, because you want people to live in these gulags, essentially. And it's good to know that the right and the left are both coming together on that. Kind of weird. Oh, yeah, electric cars, except the power grid can't charge those cars. So, and you're not going to be allowed to leave the cities. First they'll do it with the curfews and things, and then eventually they'll just put fences around the cities. You think it's hyperbolic, but they'll do whatever they want to do unless we stop them. So there's a couple articles here, a little off track. Not really. All this stuff is you don't have to have a tinfoil hat to see that this stuff is all related. So the Mary Sue talks about these two things. This show, The Last of Us, and the Rainn Wilson's comment on it. But also he mentions this other show called Women Talking, or Women Are Talking, or something. I'm sure that show will sell dozens of tickets, literally dozens, and maybe hundreds if they're very lucky. Women talking. That's fascinating. We get a lot of that in our daily life. Some would say we get enough of that. The thing is, they focus on a show that doesn't deal with abuse in any other. There's religions around the world. I better not name them. Doesn't deal with any abuse of those religious communities, but Christian communities. They focus on a Christian community, a subset of Christian communities that actually has a 500,000 members in America, a country with 1/3 billion people. So it's basically non-existent. 500,000 out of America's religions. It's like the smallest subset of religion you could possibly find. The Mennonites. Not any other religion, either in America or around the world. They never get mentioned for their abuse of women and children. Really activates the almonds. Is Medicare still on YouTube? I haven't listened to him in a while. And the horrible, I was going to say funny thing, but that's, I guess, ironic thing, is that these other groups very much do have issues with their treatment of women and children, and occasionally little boys. But that's not really the flex it was, because that's apparently now becoming popular in America, where you used to be able to have the moral high ground at one time and point to other countries that do abuse boys. Now you can't do that, because you look at America and go, oh, it's happening here too. Huh. Things are just accelerating so quickly. Anyway, so no, it's not the Christians that are an issue either in America or around the world. Very much not the Christians. Aren't there some women right now who are fighting for their rights not to dress as their male masters command them? I know that's an issue that the feminists would like to focus on deeply. Oh no, they're they're not going to vigorously examine that issue. They're just going to ignore it. Hey, look, shiny object. Let's go for another slut walk. But what about that country over there where those ones? Shh. Don't. Just don't. That's literally what's going on. They will do anything, but they'll just get that laser pointer so the cats can look at something else. Hey, look, we're focusing on these Ohio and some other issues, and no, now there's a banking crisis. Okay, sweet, but I mean, like, so your tax dollars are gonna pay for the, I mean, they're uninsured FDIC. It's like, that's part of the investment risk, right? No. In this case, your tax dollars are going to pay for the uninsured over 250K FDIC. Why exactly is that? Shh, don't ask questions. Just pony up those tax dollars. No, it's not tax dollars. We're going to print it from the Federal Reserve. But you understand, it's a system. I mean, it's a closed system at the global level, I suppose, but whether or not it's literally your taxes or not, or they print more money, it's a secondary effect of inflation. Like, you understand that, right? The money's not backed by anything. Shh. Look, shiny object, focus on something else. Yeah, I don't think there's any political solutions to any of this. Anyway, so any female issues that happens overseas got to be ignored. So they focus on man-spreading in subways, as long as the guys look like you and I. They don't focus on any other issues in the subway. Don't say anything about Bart. Just fair guys with fat legs and big balls, apparently. At some point, people are going to have to awaken to this cultural Marxism, right? Hope springs eternal, but don't hold your breath. What you can do is stack rice, beans, ammo, and expand your garden. I was in the garden this morning. They will literally just overlook any other issues of abuse, even if they're much more prevalent. So they can look at this tiny Mennonite community. It's like, nobody knows what the hell the Mennonites are. It's smaller even than like the Mormon community. And Mennonites are probably right up there with the Amish. It's like, yeah, what exactly is like 500,000 people in America that are Mennonites? Kind of weird that you'd focus on those. I mean, it doesn't make sense until it makes sense. Then it starts to all make sense, and you'll be wearing that tinfoil hat and Faraday cage your phone also. And don't say anything in the comments. I'm looking at you, chicken tendies. So this actor makes a mild comment, something I've said for obviously millions of years. It's a if-then command, where if you see Christian or fair Europid characters, then you have the antagonist. In this case, the show The Last of Us had some kind of streaming show that I'm sure is going to bomb next season. Had a guy reading the Bible, and Druckmann made him evil. Well, there are no shortage of non-Euro preachers in America. It's very popular from the African and Latin community in America, per capita anyway. They're more religious than European people, and that's to their credit. The globalist brainwashing post-war was focused on destroying people like you. Their goal was to destroy the networks and the tribalism of the family. The religion, I'm not even speaking to the underlying validity of the dogma. It's actually not that important for the point I'm making. It's the tribalism that goes along with it that they destroyed post-World War II very effectively. They did many things very, very effectively through incremental brainwashing. Turns out the power of the TV is just amazing. Weird now that you don't, there is an issue as the TV brainwashing becomes less powerful, because it's just people are watching less and less TV, and they have to switch to, online shows. Like, there is brainwashing through online shows, but it's different now because there is an alt media where, like, you are seeing some things I think are going to change a little bit because the brainwashing is less powerful. Hollywood for big screen movies are losing their power every year. So is the mainstream media. So you actually are seeing, I don't want to name any names of like these alt media presenters who have followings on Rumble and Odyssey and Bit Chute and all this kind of stuff. But there is a counter narrative that is developing right now that just wouldn't have been possible a few years ago. It's a confluence of a bunch of different variables that are all coming together. But the de-influence of TV is something to, like, I can't tell you the last time I've turned on a TV. Anyway, so 90% of the time you're seeing a negative portrayal. It's going to be European Christians, because they took the transubstantiation overboard and somehow interpreted the New Testament to mean that they should cannibalize people. No, actually, the New Testament does not say that. Yes, of course, Hollywood is anti-Christian and anti-European, which is actually, I think, the bigger issue. Not only does Druckmann make fair Christians cannibals, but the preacher snuggles little girls. So let me posit this carefully. Let's swap the race and religion. What happens? And don't say it in the comments because it just gets the channel banned. Just imagine it, or I guess you can say it on Telegram, Odyssey, and Bit Chute. You can say whatever you want over there. The anti-Christian European hatred is so blatant that when you see fair and dark characters, you know with a very high degree of correlation who the protagonist and who the antagonist is. And besides the racial politics and the tribalism and the culture war, just from its storytelling perspective, you blow the story out of the water when you like the cover of the story, whether it's a Hollywood movie, a book, or a comic book. Now, if you can look at the cover and tell the characterization of the story, it's like, well, there's no reason to read the rest of it. It destroys the suspension of disbelief. If blonde hair, then evil, and if dark, then super smart, funny, and you have the moral high ground. Even in the first Black Panther, Shuri had to be smarter than the world's smartest scientist, at least in the Marvel universe, because, well, cultural Marxism. They must take every opportunity to degrade and humiliate you. But it also takes some of the verisimilitude out of the story. Not that there are not smart people from around the world. There definitely are. But in Hollywood, they believe that they have to tear the fair down to elevate the dusky. The underlying issue isn't that different religious groups do things. That's actually a separate issue. The issue is how it works in films and in storytelling, where it's a projection of who the antagonist and the protagonist are. It's like a Scaramouche Italian storytelling structure where characters always play certain roles. You can line up characters in a Hollywood show and literally just make a correlation just by hair color alone that's going to be 90% accurate. And if you add in eye color, it's going to be like 99% accurate. If blue or green eyes, then evil, stupid, malicious. If dark eyes, then the protagonist, and they'll have the moral high ground. And I mean, I could go through the past 20 years of movies and I could probably list off 100 movies, and we could go through them one by one and go, yeah, let's just look at the protagonists, antagonists, and start matching up how they're presented on screen, like who they're supposed to be portrayed as. Are they fair or are they dark? Light eyes, light hair, or dark eyes, dark hair. And once you start seeing it, you're like, holy cow, the correlation's over 90%. And it gets, as time goes by, say go back to 1960, as time goes by, it gets worse and worse to where now it's guaranteed. Where even a mainstream Hollywood guy who, I mean, if you say something like this in Hollywood, it's like you just retired from Hollywood. And he panicked and tried to walk it back. But like he's in one TV show, and really the odds are you're in Hollywood, you're in one TV show. That's all. Most likely, that's all you're gonna get. You're not gonna, and that's enough. It's like you can usually retire on that kind of money, but you might do a podcast after that or something like that. But the idea of getting in another show or getting in movies, it's just not that likely. I mean, there's like you can work behind the scenes, but he came out and he made this very reasonable statement, and everyone looks at that statement and goes, oh well, you mean you kind of just retired from Hollywood? It's like, but yeah, he was probably retired anyway. But it's pathetic that we all know that is a death stroke for someone in the public sphere to say something like that, to speak up for Christians. And then he immediately had to do a whole tweet storm talking about, well, the really bad Christians are out there, and the Fox News. It's like he was virtue signaling as hard as he could because he panicked. But it's like you don't have to. You can just make your statement. And it's like, yeah, you retired from Hollywood with that statement, but like you were going to retire anyway. You can just have the balls and make the statement. But it turns out like the best example is Stephen King a couple years ago made that statement about judging art on the merits. Now, Stephen King is the perfect example because this guy's worth $100 million. His art will stand the test of time. He's got books and movies and graphic novels. He's got a body of work behind him. He doesn't have to apologize to anyone. And he backed down when he said, I'm going to judge art on the merits, because the cultural Marxists went after him and they attacked him on his age and his race and all this kind of stuff. And he backed down because he needed the accolades of the crowd so badly, because he spent the past probably 50 years being put up on a pedestal and being stroked off. And as soon as they threatened to take some of that away and he would become persona non grata, he backed down. He had a clear moral stance. He said, okay, I judge art on the merits. Like, that's a clear statement. That's how you feel. You can, and it's the right way to take something. It's objectively true. Or at least it's objectively true Yeah, I guess it kind of is objectively true. Um, but he backed down on it because he couldn't withstand the slings and arrows of people who didn't matter. So he lied and he said, "Oh, I changed my mind. Judge art on ethnicity instead." I mean, it's insane when you see like, so you're worth like $100 million. You don't need to back down. Like it's not somebody who's like just starting off in Hollywood where they know to kiss ass and say the party line. Like Stephen King's the one person who just did not need to say that. He's almost 80 years old. He's got all this huge body of work behind him. Nobody can take any of that away from him, and he still backed down because he couldn't stand it that there are like 10,000 people on Twitter who were calling him, who were about to take all of his Hollywood celebrityhood away. So he backed down and he said something he doesn't believe to be true. I mean, it's pathetic when you see like the command that the power that the like social media sphere and influence has over these people. Like those 10,000 Twitter people don't mean anything to you, but it also means you're not going to be invited to talk show hosts. It's like you're in your 70s, you're almost 80 maybe. You don't need it. Like it can be okay to go out on an honest note. Like you said something that was true, and then you just retired from the public sphere because you know how petty and vindictive the cultural Marxists are. But he didn't. He backed down on it. I mean, it's pathetic. It's pathetic when you realize like that's how much power it has over these people. That fame, I guess it's fame, has got that much power over people. Anyway, I mean, it doesn't have power over us because like we never had it. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for everyone's support over Subscribe Star. I do not take that for granted. Every once in a while, I take a look at that, and I'm very appreciative. And I'll see you guys all next episode.